Hello, my name is Derek Hampton, and this is my macroeconomics presentation on the U.S. trade war. A trade war refers to two or more states raising or creating tariffs or other trade barriers on each other in retaliation for other trade barriers. Increased protection causes both nations' output compositions to move towards their autarky position. Some economists agree that certain economic protections are more costly than others because they may be more likely to trigger a trade war. For example, if a country were to raise tariffs, then a second country in retaliation may similarly raise tariffs. An increase in subsidies, however, may be difficult to retaliate against by a foreign country. Many poor countries do not have the ability to raise subsidies. In addition, poor countries are more vulnerable than rich countries in trade wars. In raising protections against dumping of cheap products, a government risks making the product too expensive for its people to afford. In January 2018, President Trump imposed tariffs on solar panels, washing machines, and in March 2018, he imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum. These have been deemed the Trump tariffs. What are tariffs? Tariffs are a tax or duty to be paid in a particular class of imports or exports. Among elected officials, reactions often varied among regional lines rather than ideological lines. The tariffs have been widespread criticism from conservatives and Republicans. Reception was mixed among Democratic officials, with Democrats from Rust Belt states voicing support for tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. Morgan Stanley estimated that Trump tariffs on steel, aluminum, washing machines, and solar panels as of March 2018 covered 4.1% of U.S. imports. The tariff measure were poorly received by the vast majority of economists. Almost 80% of 104 economists surveyed by Reuters believe that the imports on tariffs on steel and aluminum imports would be a net harm to the U.S. economy, with the rest believing that the tariffs will have little to no effect. None of the economists surveyed believed that the tariffs would benefit the U.S. economy. 45 U.S. trade associations are urging Trump not to impose tariffs on China, warning it could be particularly harmful to the U.S. economy and consumers. The tariffs implemented on goods in developing industrial countries vary widely. Because developing countries have a low production rate of manufactured goods, there is a high demand for imported manufactured goods in these areas. For this reason, tariffs are high on manufactured goods, which increases the price of these products. This means that businesses may export less goods to these countries, where customers are forced to spend more. By contrast, industrialized countries are often less sensitive to manufactured goods and therefore place lower tariffs on these items. This usually translates into higher levels of exported manufactured goods, which has obvious financial benefits for manufacturing companies. Industrialized countries tend to have higher tariffs on imported agricultural goods. This translates into higher costs for customers importing agricultural goods. This increased cost can deter potential buyers, potentially decreasing profit for companies selling agricultural goods. These type of barriers to trade can inhibit companies from making a profit. In fact, data from the World Bank suggests that eliminating global trade barriers can produce a gain of $250 billion to $550 billion annually. The most prominent trade war of the 20th century was ignited by Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930, which imposed steep tariffs on roughly 20,000 imported goods. Led by Canada, American trading partner retaliated with tariffs on United States exports, which plunged 61% from 1929 to 1933. The tariffs were repealed in 1934. Historians and economists continue to debate the extent of the damage of the global economy, but there is little disagreement that Smoot-Hawley and the ensuing trade war exacerbated and prolonged the hardships of the Great Depression. Many Historians contend it also contributed to the rise of the Nazi and other fascist parties. There is also amongst universal agreement that no one won the trade war. Smoot-Hawley was such a disaster that it held sway over American trade policy for 80 years. The most common tariff used is the ad valorem, which is a tax assessed on the value of merchandise. In some countries, this tax also requires that the cost of insurance and freight be included. So the cost of goods sold to overseas buyers must be itemized. Other tariffs that is used are specific duties, and these are decided according to the range of variables such as weight, volume, or length of the export. Compound duties require both specific and the ad valorem tariff method to calculate costs. Additionally, alternative duties are used when the custom official calculates both the ad valorem and specific duties and applies the highest price. Along with these types of duties, an export may also attract processing fees, a value added tax (VAT) fee, and import processing fee, harbor tax, and other charges. The variations in tariff types can have a huge influence on a business looking to export internationally by increasing or decreasing the overall cost to the customer. In the slide here, we see the top import categories accounts for the bulk of duties collected on goods entering the United States. Articles and apparel of clothing, accessories, knitted, import value of $46.6 billion. Total duties $6.7 billion. The average rate 14.1%. So here on this chart, we get to see some of the most common items that you use on a daily basis, the value that they possess on imports, and also the duties paid with the tariffs. This chart shows the highest import value is with nuclear reactors, boilers, machinery, and appliances. Correction, the highest is electrical, machinery, and equipment, sound, TV, etc. Is there a resolution to the trade wars? Unless both sides negotiate a solution, there doesn't appear to be a way for either of them to back down while saving face. In the long run, the options will come down to an unlikely acknowledgement of defeat or more likely face-saving agreement, especially if economic costs mount. U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross indicated that the later option was a likelihood when he appeared to signal on Wednesday that the administration would eventually attempt to prevent or stop a trade war through negotiation.